And welcome back to Across the Board with E and the Colonel here on Hawk Radio, hawkradio.org. If you want to learn guitar, and a lot of people do.
Who doesn't?
Right. Guitar Hero is big these days, and let's just admit it. It's cool. You're right, to play guitar.
Everyone wants to be a guitar
band.
player. Everyone wants to be in a rock band.
Exactly. Now, I've tried a lot of different ways to learn guitar, but there's one way that's better than the rest. And this is not an endorsement necessarily, not a commercial, but it is an endorsement, I guess. JustinGuitar. Okay, is an online free site by a gentleman who's actually an artist as well. He actually plays guitar and has CDs and everything. His name is Justin Sandercoe, out of Australia, now out of England. Justin, are you with us on the phone?
I am. How you doing, dude?
Doing great, doing great. Tell us a little bit, again, the website is incredible. For those who don't know, you actually get to go through all of the lessons online for free. The website is donation only, but you can actually purchase the DVDs as well. But Justin, go into a little bit about the website and what caused you to start this.
Well, the website started off as an ad for myself when I was just doing regular private lessons, and I started doing a lot of touring, and I found myself with a lot of free time, on tour buses and hotels and airports and stuff, and I was getting into web design, so I made a little website with a few guitar lessons on it, kind of trying to figure out a little bit about web design, and it's kind of as an ad for myself as a private teacher. And I got a bit of a buzz out of it, I guess, so I kind of kept on growing it and adding more and more lessons while I was still touring and that kind of thing. And then YouTube came along and video happened, and video is a great medium for teaching guitar, a lot better than text and audio, which was what I was restricted to. I jumped on doing the video lessons. YouTube kind of took off. My lessons became pretty popular, and now it's a few million, 7 or 8 million page views, I think, a month now.
Wow.
So it's going pretty crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, I am actually doing this now. I've tried different methods of learning, private lessons, DVDs, books, everything. But there's something, like you and I were talking just off air now, that something about the way you teach. I don't know. It's your manner's personable, but it's just the way you teach the chords. A lot of people will start with C, G, and F, which are kind of difficult chords. You start with D, A, and E, and you talk about the anchor finger technique, and then you talk about common problems as well. You may get a buzz on the third string because your middle finger is coming down. So, why is your method so much more effective?
I guess it's for a couple of reasons. One, I've been teaching a long time and started when I was really young. We didn't really afford guitar lessons when I was a kid, so I used to teach other kids in my neighborhood for like 50 cents, I think it was, and then when I had like $10, then I'd use that $10 and I'd go and have a proper guitar lesson. And because I was teaching like for 20 years or whatever, I've seen lots of the mistakes. So when I'm doing a lesson on YouTube, I'm trying to answer all of the problems that somebody might encounter before they have them, which I think is, I think it's a good way of doing it. And plus, I'm still learning all the time. I'm learning about guitar all the time. I practice a lot. I'm really into it. But I like doing other stuff where I'm learning new things. I'm quite into Wing Chun Kung Fu, which I'm a beginner essentially, and I know what it feels like to be rubbish at stuff, and how you have to do things slowly, and how nice it is when you get a system. When somebody says, look, if you do this and that leads to this, and then if you finish that, then you can do this.
Right.
Having a progression kind of system is a really nice thing for me.
From your experience, what you've seen from feedback, what tends to be the most common mistake that most people, when trying to learn guitar, tend to make?
Playing too fast, or trying to accomplish things too quickly, because if something's difficult, you slow down. If you're driving your car and there's a corner that you're not really sure what's around it, or you're a bit, you crashed on it once before, the point isn't just speed up when you get to it,
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people do when they're learning scales. They'll go to play the scale, they'll make a mistake, and they get frustrated, and they go faster at it. And, of course, they're going to make the same mistake, if not more mistakes. And that can be a really frustrating route to go down. So the trick with all of that stuff is if you struggle with something and you can't do it, is just to slow it down, whether it's getting your chord changes, finding your chord shapes, learning your scales, playing a song. When I learn a new song, I'm learning some Tommy Emmanuel tunes at the moment, and I have to play them at a quarter of the speed or less than what he plays them at.
And it's an amazing tool, like I said, but you also get to play songs. You teach people how to play some incredible songs. I mean, easy stuff like Polly by Nirvana, on up to Stairway to Heaven, Red Hot, Chili Peppers, not Higher Ground, Under the Bridge.
Hysteria by Muse.
Hysteria, yeah, and we are huge Muse fans here. I'm always in awe of Matt Bellamy, so that you can show us that stuff is. Yeah, it's
you make
incredible.
It look easy. That's the thing. Watching you teach the lesson, you make it look so less intimidating that you can
exactly.
look at
it's
it
less
and
intimidating.
say,
yeah.
Wow, I'm going to learn this from
him. A little
him.
bit of it's because I slow it down a bit as well. That's I think that's kind of like what I was saying before with the speed of things. Like right now, either of you guys could play the hardest piece of guitar music that was ever played ever if you did it at the right speed.
Right.
It might take you 2 minutes between notes, but you could do it, right? So
Yeah.
with the obvious exceptions of like ridiculous finger stretches of some freak that had 12-inch fingers or something, but generally there's not much that you wouldn't be able to do if you did it at the right speed,
Speaking of that, you said the hardest piece of guitar music ever written. In your opinion, what is the hardest piece to play, and what is your favorite song to play on the guitar?
I don't know about the hard. I don't really think I could answer what the hardest one is. There's loads of really, really hard guitar things, but it depends on what, I'm sure Steve Vai's got like really, really hard guitar things, but if he tried to play a Bach loop suite, he'd find that the hardest thing, but his stuff's obviously easy, or, you know what I mean? So it just depends on where you come from. I mean, Tommy Emmanuel stuff I find really, really challenging. Bach things like classical things I find really challenging. Joe Pass jazz things. There's in almost every style, if you look at the people who are the pinnacle of that style, it's difficult to do. Even a slow blues thing, to do it really well is incredibly difficult.
And you have also, again, you're not just some guy who started up on YouTube, showing guitar lessons. I mean, you have taught master classes in guitar and transcribing, and you've been featured in articles in Total Guitar Magazine, and you've actually played with a cover band, a Rolling Stones cover band called the Counterfeit Stones for years.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that I'm currently reading Keith Richards' autobiography. Life just came out, and loving it, and he's actually in the part where he's learning guitar, and just getting together with the Stones. What made you pick the Stones? What led you to Keith Richards playing?
I'd learned all of those songs when I was a little kid, mostly badly, I must admit. I had to relearn them and re-study them, but it was an interesting circle for me to have gone through all of this stuff as we moved to the other side of the world, and then suddenly ended up in a Stones tribute band, so that was kind of funny. I guess the bigger gig that you guys don't pick up on because you've never heard of her is this. I work with a girl called Katie Melua, who's just the biggest selling artist in Europe for 3 years in a row.
That was actually going to be my next question. I have heard of her, and I know you taught her guitar as well, correct?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but it's a funny. Often when I'm speaking to American people, they don't get it because they haven't kind of. She's not a very familiar name in the States. We did a couple of shows in the States with the Today Show and a few other tellies, but not many compared to Europe, so it's a funny thing. But that was a great experience for me playing at that level for a few years and traveling the world doing it. It's the little, even though it's kind of a pop jazz kind of an act, it was a really good, it's the living the dream thing if you're a musician, of traveling the world and playing guitar every night between 10,000 and 100,000 people every night and doing it. It's a really good, fun thing.
And not only, did you teach her guitar and played with her while she was on tour, but she actually did a song of yours, correct? She did Turn to Tell?
She did.
Nice.
And, that was my first ever platinum record. Actually, my only platinum record at the moment, so I'm hoping for another one.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about your solo releases. You can play all kinds of music, but your solo music is mostly off the acoustic guitar, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of folky. The music that really hits me is stuff like Neil Young and Elliott Smith and James Taylor and that kind of folky acoustic tradition, I guess. So I did a record in that came out and end of February last year called Smalltown Eyes. did pretty cool. It's kind of difficult being an independent artist. Well, it's difficult being an artist, I think, for anyone at the moment, because even some pretty successful acts aren't making too much money. But I recouped, and that was cool. I'm about to start recording another record, but I'm going to lose the vocals this time, which is probably a good thing with the sound of my voice right now. But so I probably won't be singing on the next record, and I'm just going to go back to doing a proper guitar record.
Now, do you have a favorite? I'm sure you get asked this question all the time. Do you have a favorite guitarist? I mean, do you prefer a Keith Richards or Steve Vai type, or are you into an artist that we have here called Buckethead? I'm not sure if you've heard of him.
I'm familiar with Buckethead. I'm not really a Buckethead fan, I've got to admit. I've flip and changed between different artists as being, I guess, my favorite. The one that kind of seems to stand true all the time is Jeff Beck. He's probably my... If I had to pick one guitar player, it would be Jeff Beck.
That's a good pick, yeah.
If I had to pick one musician, it would probably be Miles Davis. So,
yeah.
They're kind of different, I guess. So it's, but of course I'm a really huge fan of, like, Jimi Hendrix and, the modern jazz guys like Robin Ford and Larry Carlton and that kind of thing.
Now, what is your level of popularity? How's that affected the things you do in your everyday life around town? Just what has that done? Obviously, has it changed you any? I'd assume not. And if it has, what has it changed?
I was just at the London Guitar Show a few months ago, and I got to interview Steve Vai there, and it was a good, fairly good show. And I walked from the little kind of hangout area through to the main room, and nobody said anything to me. And I thought, this is cool. No one's giving me any whoopee about stuff, or I felt quite anonymous, which was sometimes really cool. And then I went back to the room, got my hat, and when I did the same path again with my hat on, there was probably 20 or 30 people coming in saying, "Hey man, how you doing? Can you do this on this?" And what, It was really funny, the fact that nobody knew me without the Justin hat, and they were, saying, "What, were you here earlier? Why didn't you have your hat on?" I thought it was kind of cute, actually.
Now, what else do you have to accomplish? Like you said, one of your dreams was to tour the world and play guitar every night. You're doing that. You've done that. You're going to do that in the future. You're teaching people an incredible instrument and enriching their lives that way. Obviously, it's cost-worthy for everyone. What else do you have to accomplish? What are some of your goals?
Well, I had a list when I came to London of things that I wanted to do. And I've done them all, which was really, really cool. About 3 or 4 years ago, I took the last one off the list, and that was a real thrill. So I've had to make up new ones. And musically, I guess it's to make a record, a guitar record that I'm really happy with, that does some new things and is not a repeat of things that have come before, that means something. It all starts to sound really hippie then when I start talking about that stuff, but really finding a connection, an expressive outlet through the music, because that's the hardest part. It's all good learning all of the stuff, the notes and the scales and chords and all that sort of stuff, but it's really the getting it out and really making it mean something. That's the hardest part,
Again, you're listening to Across the Board with Ian the Colonel, and we have Justin Sandercoe of JustinGuitar.com on the line. Justin, would you ever consider doing an album like Carlos Santana has famously done his past 2 or 3 albums or so, where he simply played guitar and had other artists sing around him? Would you be interested in doing something like that?
It's been mooted already, and the producer that I used for my last record and I had a conversation the other day where we were thinking about doing a similar thing. I've met up with a couple of singers, and I have been doing some writing with some other singers, so I'm kind of thinking at the moment that I'm spending this year really, my goal this year is to really get my technique back up on the guitar, because for the last maybe 8-10 years I've really been focused on songwriting. I've always played guitar, of course, but my main kind of headspace has been in songwriting, and so my guitar, my actual technique and my facilities kind of got a bit sloppy, so I'm really spending this year getting my technique back and getting my connection back and doing a guitar record. Then I'm thinking after that, if I've got to a place where I'm happy with it, that then after that I'll probably go back to focusing on songwriting, knowing that my guitar is kind of in a good place, and then I'd love to do a record like that,
With the introduction of Guitar Hero, it's a two-sided coin, I think, in terms of what it's brought to the general public. It makes guitar, to most people, I guess, to the general public, it makes guitar seem a lot easier than it really is and gives a false sense of expertise, I guess, if you will. What's your opinions on what the game has brought to youngsters? Do you think it's a positive thing to help them try to want to learn actual guitar, how to play the guitar, or has it jaded the youth?
Well, I have to preface it by saying that I've never actually played it. And I have a guitar, I have a T-shirt that you can buy on my website which says, be a real guitar hero.
Nice.
At JustinGuitar.com, because I do think it's a little bit funny. But, I mean, that's kind of what it's like a bit, I guess, for a certain generation of kids, you know, that they don't get why would you spend, you know, have a real guitar. But at the same time, I'm sure it's brought kids interest to the guitar. You know, my biggest, most viewed video on YouTube is Sweet Child of Mine. I can't remember how many, 4 or 5 million views or some ridiculous number now. And I'm sure that a lot of that is from the popularity of that is because it's one of the riffs on Guitar Hero, you know. And there's some of the comments are, watching this video really helped me master my Guitar Hero playing. And I'm like, oh, God, you so missed the point. But
so I understand that you know, different guitars, obviously with different pickups, give different sounds. And we recently had Scott Lucas from Local H on the show, and he talked about playing bass pickups on his guitar and that sort of thing. And I know some people will play bass strings. That's how you get different sounds. How do you, like, again, I'm reading that Keith Richards autobiography right now. He's talking about pairing guitars, certain guitars with certain amps, like you just mentioned. Is that just you're toying around with things and trial and error, or how do you know how to get that right sound?
Yeah, it's more trial and error than anything else, but I guess with experience you get a little bit more familiar with what's going to work before you kind of, I've got an idea of if I plug that guitar into that amp, it's probably going to sound like this, but I'd still try it. And it's one of the things that every time I get a new bit of gear in the studio, I go through and I plug all of my guitars in all of that. If I get a new amp, all of my different guitars will go through that amp for a little while, and I'll fiddle about to find out what ones work with what gear and what doesn't, because you do get some that just work really great. You know, this I've got an old Marshall, a late 60s Marshall amp, a big, you know, quad box and head in there that I bought for an AC/DC competition that I did, and I had to have the AC/DC band sent me a Gibson SG for doing the Angus parts, but I couldn't get the Malcolm parts right at all, and I'd tried all of my different guitars through this amp, through loads of different amplifiers, and I couldn't get it. In the end, I found a vintage guitar shop that had a Gretsch that was the same as Malcolm Young, so I bought it, got it shipped in, and as soon as I played it, it was the right sound, you know. So it really, it's unbelievable how different they can be. That it's not just, oh, that's kind of the right guitar in kind of the right amp.
Exactly. I don't have to keep messing around with that. I have 2 amps and a couple different guitars, so I can try those. So, you know, let's talk about real quick how you can go online to JustinGuitar.com and go through them for free. However, if you want to give a donation to Justin to keep this going, definitely do that. We please ask that you do that. We're going to get some of his music to play here on the radio station as well, and you can always get in touch with us to follow him as well. But, Justin, they can actually buy the DVD sets, correct? You started Chocolate Cake Productions, and you have DVD sets available, including Master the Major Scale, chord construction guides. You've got PDF format electronic books. How can people stay in touch with you and get everything from your website?
Well, everything's at JustinGuitar.com. We try and do... We're using this new business model now, which we think is quite interesting, which is give it away for free and sell it as well, which really sounds ridiculous, but it seems to be working. And so
so many musicians are doing that now.
Products is that we bring out a course, like we've just brought out the new Intermediate Series guitar course, and we sell it on DVD as well. And if you buy the DVD, you get a few bonus lessons, which kind of help speed things up a bit, but they're not essential to your progression as a guitar player. So I think that works. We sell some exclusive stuff too. My theory book and things, and the Master of the Major Scale are only available on DVD, just because, as you know, the donation idea is a really funky idea, and there are a lot of really generous people that make a donation, but the percentage of people that make a donation is very small, and it needs to be supplemented with selling stuff. So we were kind of into a corner of the DVD thing, you know.
Well, I was practicing last night, going through with my anchor finger and I'm doing my 1 minute changes. So I'm going through and I don't jump ahead. You say to, trust you and take the time and do one thing at a time. And I'm doing that. And it's true. It's really paying off and enjoying your music as well. So just, I had to get more word out about you. It's incredible. JustinGuitar.com. Check it out. Check out Justin's his music and Kate as well. And we just we thank you and we'll stay in touch. And I'm definitely gonna have to go out and get one of those shirts from your website, the Be a Real Guitar Hero, as soon as I learn how to play my PRS.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you.
Absolutely. So that has been Justin Sandercoe from JustinGuitar.com. And as always, you're listening to Across the Board with Ian the Colonel on Hawk Radio.
HawkRadio.org.